Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala wa ba'd. My dear brothers, welcome and Eid Mubarak, because this is the first time we are meeting after Eid. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your coming and accept all our ibadat and sadaqat and khairat and all the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the ability to do in Ramadan. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you many more such opportunities and to accept all of this and more from you, inshallah. Let me begin by asking you a question, and forgive me for the question. The question is, how many of you today in Tahajjud prayed for the forgiveness of your grandparents?
Today?
Today. How many of you think that your grandchildren will do the same for you? One generation. I'm going to ask you an even more embarrassing question. How many of you prayed in Tahajjud today for the forgiveness of your parents? May Allah bless you for being honest. The reason I'm asking this question is because this is the reality of life. This is the life that you are chasing. This is the life that you are chasing. Not one of you will deny that you would not be sitting here if your parents had not dedicated the best part of their lives to your upbringing. Not one of you will deny the fact that your grandparents dedicated the best part of their lives to the upbringing of your parents, and in many cases also your upbringing. Because many of us, our grandparents are part of our memory. But the reality of life, and this doesn't mean that you are bad people, this is a reality of life. The reality of life is one generation does not even make dua in Tahajjud for the parents. And okay, let me remove Tahajjud out of it. Did you make dua in Fajr, Zohar, Asr, Maghrib, Isha just by itself? I did see one or two hands. Alhamdulillah, may Allah bless you. And hopefully, if nothing else happens, at least tonight you will make dua for your parents and your grandparents thanks to this lecture, this reminder, which itself will be good, inshallah. Inshallah. Now, why am I saying that? I am saying this because of one reality of life. And that reality of life is that who we are is a function of what we do. Who we are is a function of what we do. We don't remember Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu because he was somebody's father, somebody's grandfather, and so on and so forth. Most of us do not even know the names of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu's children except Abdullah ibn Umar. And we don't know the name of Abdullah ibn Umar because he was the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhuma, but because of what Abdullah ibn Umar did by himself. His own accomplishments, he was one of the greatest scholars of Islam. He was one of the he was the person named by Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha as being the most on the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So you remember Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu because of what he did, not because of who he was. Who he was a function of what he did. The same thing applies to me, same thing applies to you. Who we are is a function of what we do. And therefore the question to you is, what do you do? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind when you go from this earth? And as we have seen, children are not a safe investment. You are proof of that. Now, let me therefore ask you this question. I asked you this question in one way, what is your legacy? Let me ask you this question in another way, and that question is, what is your dream? What is your dream? I want you to go back tonight and seriously answer these questions. What is your dream? Let me tell you a couple of stories. I love telling stories. The first story is about a man who bought a first-class train ticket. He sat in the right seat in the right compartment. But when the ticket collector came to check his ticket, he threw him out of the train. He literally, physically pushed him out of the train. The man actually fell down on the platform. But when the man got up, a dream was born. The dream to free his nation from slavery. Now the dream itself was not unique. What was unique was the circumstances in which this dream was born. This dream was born, the man was dreaming about freeing his nation from slavery at a time when he could not even have control over his own freedom. Completely unrealistic dream. Second story. Another man who also dreamt of freeing his nation from slavery. For the price of that dream was that he was imprisoned on a rock in the middle of the ocean. And he was imprisoned there. I have been there on that rock. I have been inside his cell. He spent not 1, 2, 3 years. He spent 27 years. 27 years in that cell. Once again, a very unrealistic dream. Especially if you take into account the fact that when the man was in the prison, he did not know that one day he would be freed. He was in there for life. He was not there for 27 years. He was not counting down to a particular date. He was there until he died. The Mashiach of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he did not die, that he came out, that he freed his nation, that he became the president, the first president of independent South Africa, Nelson Mandela, was all the Mashiach of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which happened later on. But when he was on Robben Island, he had no idea that he would one day be free. But he did not stop dreaming. Very unrealistic dream. Third dream. Another man born inside a prison camp. In his 20s, playing football, he broke his spine, became paraplegic, paralyzed from the neck down. Then he went to one of the most venerable universities in the world, one of the oldest, became Hafiz Quran, became an alim, graduated from there, and then he did not go away to America or somewhere to get a cushy job in a masjid. He came back to his prison camp homeland. And he spent the rest of his life trying to help his people, trying to help them gain freedom, trying to help them through their difficulties, trying to help them through calamities, hospitals, orphanages, and so on and so forth. For his trouble, he was imprisoned not once, not twice, many times by the occupiers of his land. He was tortured in jail because it's quite easy to torture somebody who's paralyzed anyway. And eventually he was freed, and then he came out and he didn't change his ways. He continued to do what he was doing, fighting for the freedom of his people when he himself was completely paralyzed from the neck down. And then one day, at the age of 67, when he was being wheeled out of the masjid after Salatul Fajr, they killed him. They had to fire 3 Hellfire missiles from an Apache helicopter to kill a paralyzed old man. Why? Because dreamers don't die easy, and dreams don't die at all. Today, as I talk to you, the same land is undergoing once more trials and tribulations that we can only read. May Allah protect you and keep you from having to experience that. And as we sit here, it appears that this dream of this man of freeing his nation from slavery is never going to come true. But does that stop you from dreaming? Doesn't stop me. Doesn't stop me. I will carry that dream of a free Palestine into my grave if it doesn't get freed before that time. Dreams live on. And that's why my question to you is, what is your dream? Second question, do you really want to be free? Now what's the key word there? Really. Do you really want to be free? Because if you really want to be free, then you have to be prepared to take responsibility for yourself. People who blame others for whatever happens in their lives can never be free. Blaming others for what happens in your life is a sign of mental slavery. And mental slavery is not as bad as physical slavery, it is much worse. Much worse. Physical slavery is not slavery at all. Physical slavery is just confining of your body with chains. As long as the mind is free, nobody can enslave you. But mental slavery is in the mind. The chains are not visible. But those chains are very powerful. And the second thing about those chains is that others can't break them for you. You have to break your own chains. The good side is you can break your own chains. So question is, do you really want to be free? And if you really want to be free, then we have to do 4 things. To care more than others think is wise. To risk more than others think is safe. To dream more than others think is practical. And to expect more from yourself than others think is possible. These are the 4 things. To care more than others think is wise. To risk more than others think is safe. To dream more than others think is practical. And to expect from yourself more than others think is possible. If you can do these 4 things, then inshallah you will be free. Third question, what are your ideals? What do you hold yourself accountable to and for? What are your ideals? I talk to a lot of people of all ages, and among them are young school children. And I have yet to see a young child who was not an idealist. Every child is born an idealist. Every single one of us was an idealist. But then what happens? Life happens. You go out into the world with this wonderful ideal of yours and you hit a wall. And that wall is called discouragement. That wall is called rebellion. The world is called reneging on promises. People let you down, often people who you trusted the most. People deceive you, they lie to you, they promise you things they never deliver. And gradually this idealism gets a hit and a hit and a hit. And it starts going down the slope. But because idealism is difficult to kill, it is possible to dampen, but it's difficult to kill, you still remain optimistic about things. But then life doesn't stop. So you keep getting hit and hit and hit and hit and hit, and gradually from being idealist, you become optimistic, and then you become what is called realistic. Now about this time you start also acquiring advisors. And people come to you and say, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Why don't you wake up? You're still wet behind the ears. This is the real world. Get real. Don't keep fighting things. You cannot fight this. It's okay. Corruption is part of life. Everything is corrupt. Everybody is corrupt. You say, I should not take a bribe. No, 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 no. This is rubbish. You should not say, you say, I should not tell lies. This is nonsense. Everybody tells lies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one to forgive. And so on, advise us. So you become realistic. And yet life does not stop, and you keep getting hit and hit and hit, and so you become pessimistic. And eventually, the bottom of the pit, you become cynical and you become indifferent. Cynics are very popular at parties usually because they make cynical remarks which everybody laughs, which serves to hide the tears behind those laughs. And eventually you hit the bottom of the pit and you become indifferent. Doesn't matter. whatever is happening in the world can happen. So from idealist to optimist to realist to pessimist to cynic to indifferent. That is the slide. But I'm not saying this to you to make you feel depressed. I'm saying this to you to tell you one great secret, and that secret is that in the heart of every indifferent person, which is at the bottom of the pit, in the heart of every indifferent person, still glows the flame of idealism that was there on day one. And that is the reason you will find that when people see your idealism, what is the first thing that happens? Opposition. People will say, no, this is not possible. If they are Hyderabadi, they will say, "Arey, aisa hota kya?" First thing, number one sentence out of the mouth to your idealism is, this is not possible. This is too big, cannot be done, impossible. Who did it before? Tell me who flew a plane before Orville and Wilbur Wright invented a plane. If precedence is a condition of invention, then nothing will be invented. But the thing to remember is this: those people who are opposing you are not opposing you. They're not opposing you at all. They are reacting to the picture that they are seeing reflected in your eyes. And when they look into your eyes as an idealist, you know what they're seeing? They're seeing themselves not as they are today, they're seeing themselves as they were one day, which was just like you. And they hate what they have done to themselves. So when they see the picture in your eyes, they see the picture of what they were like one day, and they see themselves today, they are asking themselves, this is what I did to myself? How did I become like this? So they have two choices. The first knee-jerk reaction is, if I can make you shut up, if I can make you accept that you are talking nonsense, if I can make you accept that your dream is absolute poppycock, it's never going to happen, then I'm safe. Then I have to do nothing. But you know, the problem with them is that they are up against you. And you are this person who is completely unrealistic in his dream, because you understand that a realistic dream is an oxymoron. No such thing. A dream is supposed to be unrealistic. So you continue on your idealistic path, and you don't give in, and you don't allow that opposition to dampen your enthusiasm. And then you will find a strange thing happening. And that strange thing you find happening is that the same people, that flame of idealism, the little glowing spark of idealism which is still there in the heart, now starts gaining strength. Until one day it's a fierce blaze. And then those people walk by your side. And you will be surprised, how is it that this person who opposed me the most is now standing by my side? Because he wakes up to the fact that either one day I die and I'm gone. Even my own children will not make dua for me. Or he will understand that if I don't want that to happen, then let me do something and create something which will ensure that not only my children, but thousands upon thousands until the day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides to remove that, will continue to make dua for me. That is the choice. And they choose the latter instead of the former. So the question is, what is your ideal? My brothers, I want to remind you that a lamp does not light a room by doing something to the room. The lamp lights the room by remaining lighted itself. Final question. What difference do you want to make? What difference do you want to make? And I will tell you two stories. One is my personal story. I had a boss many years ago when I used to work in the tea gardens. And his name is Mr. Khaja Ahmadullah. And I was told me something once. He told me one day, he said, if you want a plant to grow, what do you have to put in it? So I said, manure. So he said, what is manure? So I said, cow dung. He said, right. So he said, then remember one thing. He said, even cow dung makes a difference. Even cow dung has a positive effect. And if you live your whole life and you never made a difference, then you are worse than cow dung. Second story. There's a famous writer by the name of Lawrence Isley. It is again a true story. All the stories I told you are all true stories, incidentally. Lawrence Isley writes this, he wrote a little book called Starfish. It's a wonderful little story. He said he was on a beach resort on a holiday, and one night there was a huge storm. And next morning he said, I came out onto the beach and I was walking along the beach and I saw the beach was littered with debris from the sea. These broken pieces of wood and seaweed and so on. And in the middle of all this debris, he said, I saw thousands of starfish thrown up on the sand. So he said, as I was picking my way through all this mess and walking along, in the distance I saw what appeared to be someone doing a sort of a dance. He said this person would bend down to the sand and he would stand up and he would make this kind of a motion. And he said, as I got close to the person, I saw it was a little boy. And this boy was picking up starfish from the sand and throwing them into the sea. So Lawrence Isley said, I went up to the boy and I asked him, what are you doing? And this is the usual way of people. They see somebody doing something, then they have to ask him, what are you doing? So Lawrence Isley said, I said, what are you doing? So he said the boy had a starfish in his hand. He said, I am throwing this starfish into the sea because they can't move on the sand. And when the sun comes out, they dry out and they will die. So I am throwing it into the sea so that it will not die. Lawrence Isley said, I laughed at him. He said, I laughed in his face. I told him, look, turn around, turn around. He said, look along this beach. How many thousands of starfish are there on this beach? You can't even count. And he said, think about this. How many million square miles of beach are there in the world? How many storms are happening every year? How many millions of starfish are being thrown up on those beaches? He said, you are one little boy. He said, what difference can you make? He said, what is the point of doing this? What difference can you make? Lawrence Isley says, the boy looked at me. He looked at the starfish in his hand which he was holding. He threw it into the waves and he said it made a difference to that one. Lawrence Isley said, I walked away and I walked for a long time. And he said, then I turned around, I came back and he said, that boy and I threw starfish into the waves for a long time. Now, why am I telling you all these stories? I'm telling you all these stories to introduce you, and many of you are already aware of this, to the idea of the Standard Bearers Academy. That is our starfish. That is our dream. That is our legacy. When I say our, I mean our, I don't mean mine. I don't mean mine. I mean the legacy of anyone who wants to make it his own. The dream of anyone who wants to dream that dream. The Standard Bearers Academy is, inshallah, a school of global Muslim leaders. Global leaders who are ethical and who are moral. Today we have global leaders who are completely amoral, who are completely free from everything that you and I know as morality or as ethics and values. Global leaders who are focused purely and purely on amassing power and amassing wealth, irrespective of the cost, either in environmental pollution or in human life or in anything whatsoever. What we have said, I and all those who are with us, and many of them are here in this room, we said that we are going to change this picture of the world. And what is the best way to change the picture of the world? Is to create a new generation. A new generation of global, ethical and moral global leaders. And that is what the Standard Bearers Academy is all about. The USP, the unique sales proposition of the Standard Bearers Academy is an education system that combines in an integrated manner scientific education with Islamic religious education. I am saying integrated manner because what we have in the world today globally is secular schools with the Islamic syllabus as an add-on. No matter how good the school is, this is what happens across the world. There is nobody who is teaching physics through the Quran, there is no one who is teaching Quran through physics. But that is what should be done, that is what is required, and that is what is the most powerful way of presenting Islam to the world. By living Islam, by demonstrating Islam in word, in behavior and in spirit. Creating societies which are hugely positive for everyone who is a member of that society, Muslim or non-Muslim. And that is what the Standard Bearers Academy, inshallah, is designed to create. Ethical and moral global leaders who will be leaders in every aspect of society. Science and technology and social service and politics and everywhere. Academia. Inshallah, our project is based in Australia. We have 2018 as the date on which it will open its doors. Work is in progress now in terms of acquiring land and then inshallah building and so on and so forth. We'll come back to you with updates. We need your support. Number one, in terms of your dua and tahajjud. Number two, in terms of your support materially. Money as well as influence. And much more importantly than your personal contribution monetarily is in spreading the word about this in all the lands where you live. We have a course which we teach called the Leadership Excellence course, which is based, the idea of the course is to give you a taste of what integrated education means. And we do this in 5 days as a residential program, and therefore that's another vehicle in order to present the dream of Standard Bearers Academy to the people of the world by having the Leadership Excellence course in your countries. We have done that in Kuwait, I think 2-3 times, and then in other countries, but the rest of the world. So therefore that's the 3: material support, support with dua, and support with your influence in terms of spreading the word, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you and to help us in order to achieve this dream, that we might leave behind a legacy which will not only be good, inshallah, for our own akhirah, but which will be something which has a chance of changing the destiny of this ummah going forward, inshallah. In such a way, changing the destiny in such a way that it is good for everybody, not only Muslims. We want to create Muslims as being leaders who will be appreciated and who will be welcomed by everybody in society, Muslim or non-Muslim. That is what the Muslims were, that is what the Sahaba were. And that is what we want to create. Recreate the first generation today in the 20th, 21st century, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with us and to ease the way and to open the doors and to make this happen and to make this dream a reality so that we can see it, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahim.